It's like really difficult to get the glare flares off of the camera. It's like a trip. Hey gang, another day, another dollar. Been working through similar process. I mean, it's, never want to say that it's the same. Every day is different. You know, you never know what the day is going to entail. However, you always put out the purest intention. And as of late, I've been stuck somewhat in my head, more so than what I ever have been in the past, because I'm overanalyzing, I'm overthinking, I'm overstimulating myself more than what's needed or necessary, when in reality I have to remind myself to keep it simple and just kind of keep it simple stupid. And it's a lot easier said than done. I always growing up, which I need to even change that statement of I always. See, some of the things that have like really been enlightening for me as of late have been the fact that like more, and I always knew this innately, and I think I've mentioned this previously before in other videos, more research is coming forward that generational history, things that had happened in your family lineage, outside of physical traits, are able to be passed on from generation to generation. And now like reading those documents and like really knowing innately that that was true when I was younger, I could just sense that like some of these things weren't me. They were just things that were me because my family had done it, or it was a pattern that was within my family's nature that had made me do certain things. But then at the same note, I'm also able to identify the things that for the most part are completely separate of my family, or were only traits within certain members of my family that were kind of put off to the side or considered the black sheep, or just kind of like the oddballs in the family, if you would. And what's really kind of, I guess, like, what's the word? What's really kind of cool about it is that you can put, like, if you've got the ability to, you can put your whole family that you know, like, up on this window, if you will, of like who they are, like each person, like your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your grandparents, you know, your great-grandparents, like your brothers, your sisters, your mother, your father, like boom, like everybody, just line them all up. Even family, friends that you would still even kind of in a sense consider, because those would be then the environmental influences as well, like everything that you experienced when you grew up, and then just from that you put that whole thing up of like who your family was or are, right? And then you start going down the line from the oldest person you can remember in the family on whatever side, like say it's your father's side, then start breaking down all the members on your father's side and what their interactions were, who they're like, how they behaved, like what the traits were, like everything, like just in. And those that are in touch and in tune be like, oh my God, that's so far back, I can't remember. But if you're aware of it, if you're able to tap in, you can remember it all for the most part. And because they're in lump segments. It's not like every single interaction. It's the interactions, not the ones that happen the most, but like if you went for the holidays and you were able to remember all of your holidays in your childhood, and you remember their interactions and their systematic way of doing things, and the way that like grandpa had a certain drink, or you know what I mean, at a certain point in time, you know, grandmother would do this, and the way that the cooking was, like I can go back and remember the entire way my family did holidays from start to finish in certain aspects, like where if it was just say Christmas time, like we'd go to my grandparents' house I called them Old Timer and Gog. They're my father's parents. So at Old Timer's and Gog's house, not God, Gog, G-O-G. That name came from my cousin Corey, because her glasses were so big that they looked like goggles. And she even got a license plate made, said Gog. And everybody in town eventually called her Gog too. They call her Sylvia or Gog. So anyway, it's funny. So in Gog and Grandpa's house, there would be sections at Christmas time where it was like Mom and Pop, Michaela and me, our section, and then there would be Corey's section. And they were always located in the same section of the house. And then Uncle Earl would come over, there'd be Uncle Steve, and then, you know, Aunt Beth and Paul, and then Gog and Grandpa, and then any family members that would then visit outside, or like friends of the family, I should say. And like that was like the way it was like set up, right? And what's funny is like I loved holidays at God and Grandpa's. It was great. It was amazing. Like, it was super fun. But I'm bringing up that story because like that never changed. Like that system, that setup, it never changed. We had these giant brown paper bags that had our names on them, and every year they would be folded up and then stocked away until next year, and they would start up again. So like there's always these family systems within different families. It could be whatever it is, but people would follow tradition. They would follow like the way that things would be. And if we ever tried to be doing something different, it would be usually like, well, no, because this is how we do it. You know, there was never a question involved. There was never, oh, could we do this differently? Could we do this? Like, it was just, no, this is how we do it. And what I pose is that like no growth can happen in stagnation. Like, I know I'm just using this one example, and it seems somewhat kind of vague, but I'm using it to see if you can pinpoint in your life within your family tree, and then remember from those interactions historically, like how your family members acted, reacted, what their mindsets were, you know, what their, like how they did things, and then look upon yourself of, do you do the same things, like consciously or subconsciously? Because if you really tap into it, even if you're somebody who's like completely the opposite spectrum of your family, and I was that person / am that person in my family. I mean, some people, like my sister may say, no, you're not. I am, because like, look at my life. But again, like if you really adamantly, like by far look at, like, my sister is too, but she is in a different degree. As far as life choices are concerned, but personality wise, she's not going to admit it. She is so much like like my mom and my dad, to like to a certain degree. And I mean, like, I can admit it too. Like, I'm very much like my mother and father as well. But the difference is that like they would never do shit like this. They would never like publicly talk about, you know, like these things within their family lineage, to then break it down, to then not put it on to the next generation, to then also break through the traumas, break through the patterns, break through the emotions that are associated with those traumas and with those patterns, and to try to push through to the next level, even though they're two really highly artistic people. And what's funny is that the arts are what literally allotted me and allowed me to break through without me consciously knowing that's what I was doing. And now people get gravitated to the arts no matter what the arts are, and they think sometimes, oh, it's from desire and creative inspiration, which is true. Most of the time it is true, and it does happen that way. But a majority of people don't realize that there's an underlying factor that is, you are trying to break through because there's something that didn't allow you to break through initially. The art gave you the freedom to break through to things. The art gave you the ability to do things outside of the ordinary or outside of the box, or in a way where you were, quote, accepted by a certain group of people that may not have accepted you before, and you were wanting their approval. As much as you may or may not agree with it, that underlining factor is by far still in everybody's artistic story, whether they want to admit it or not. Like every artist. If they're saying they didn't want to be accepted, that's a lie. That's just a blatant lie, whether they know it or not. And if I'm stepping on toes, I'm sorry, but I've come to realize that be true with everybody I've talked to about art. Of course they wanted to be accepted. Of course they wanted to be acknowledged. Of course they wanted to do it because it made them feel good. All of these things are just like prime truths within any art. Now, to go back on like the historical history type generational pass down of like all this stuff, right? So my my dad's side, there was that. And then my mom's side, like I had Mamaw Hutcherson and Papaw Hutcherson. My Papaw passed when I was around, I think, 2 turning 3 years old, and he passed of like a really rare stomach cancer. Now it's like, but then I think about my interactions with my Mamaw and what that was and how that lifestyle was, and then thinking about like her interactions with my mother, and then my Uncle Jim at one point, and then my Uncle Jim like just totally cut ties with us. My 2 cousins, they totally cut ties with us, and it was off of the request of my uncle before he passed. And I can tell now that was just family influence. So it's like you see these traumas, you see these interactions, and then you find out like where the patterns are in your own life. And so for me, like I was able to break down so many things that like were structured and systematically implemented into my life, to then in a way certain things I naturally rebelled to, but then other things I knew were not true in the overall ultimate truth of just like life and like God and the way that you should be living, and just like all this certain stuff. Whether also like, I mean, I was kicked out of religion class in 6th grade because I questioned too much just the way that the Bible worked. And there were certain things I remember that like sisters couldn't answer my questions on certain things, and my dad got a phone call and they were like, we don't want Jordan to come into religion class anymore, which is hilarious. So anyway, mind you, like I'm saying all this like just because like I think it's important that people not care so much about what people know about who they are and what their family did or didn't do, or who they are, especially if you're just trying to grow. Like right now, if you look at the political scheme, like so many of these politicians and their families, they hide so much shit about who they are, but yet whenever something gets public about them and they deny it completely, it's so much better to just own up to what the truth is. Like just own up to it, because if you own up to it, you don't have to keep weaseling around it. Like the more you deny stuff, like the more it's just going to be put onto your plate, you know? And I find it super hilarious. Like I think like the latest thing like right now is like for example, like the Democratic Party, like Tulsi Gabbard, I can't even pronounce her name right, is like suing Hillary Clinton, but then Hillary doesn't want to accept the summons for it, or the serve. She's not wanting to get served, so she's having like all these people like deny the serve, and it's like, well, you eventually got to take it somehow. Like maybe it might, like on the DNC platform, it might literally just get handed to her directly on national television. Like it's like, why are you running away from stuff? Like don't run away from it. Like just like face it. Like face whatever it is that's being put in front of you. Like if it starts triggering certain things in you, you got to work through that. You got to process that. I mean, like I'm passionate about it because I've seen the benefit of tearing down this facade that we build for ourselves. Like I've seen the benefit of breaking through all this stuff that would like they were like psychological and psychic chains that we put onto ourselves. Like nobody else put them onto us. The only reason we put it onto ourselves is because of how we were like pressed as children. It all stems from childhood. As much as many people don't want to say it does. It stems from childhood, and then it just gets reaffirmed as a young teen. It gets reaffirmed as an adult because, like, oh, if I tell the truth, I'm going to get hurt, or oh, if I really say how I'm going to feel, people aren't going to understand me properly, or oh, I don't want to offend X, Y, or Z, and like, oh, like, where's your intention behind what you're saying? Are you trying to heal, or are you trying to harm? Like, Truthfully, are you trying to heal or are you trying to harm? If you're trying to heal and you articulate that and you're coming from a positive place, you're coming from a loving place, it's no wrong thing can be said, because you're not going to attack somebody. You're not going to try to tear somebody down. You're not going to try to grow from it. And so, like, when I bring up traumas or things of my past or things of my family's past that I feel might be beneficial to other people, I do it because I see that it took me X amount of time to work through it and to break through what it was that was holding me down and then holding myself down. Now I'm no longer held on to that emotion or to the effect of what that used to be. Thus my mind frame has changed. Thus I have changed. Thus everything in my understanding has changed. And what usually happens, you aren't given resistance. The resistance then comes against people who used to know you, because they see you as being different, and that different is a threat to them. That difference in mindset is a threat to them. Oh, you're not who you used to be. No, absolutely not. Because who I used to be caused a lot of pain in myself. Now, and that's where it's like, oh, but now you're causing me pain. It's like, no, I am not causing you pain. You're causing yourself pain by the expectations of things being the way that they once were. That's where the issue is. People want to stick and keep things the way that they always were. And that's where it's like, nope, you got to see that that's an addiction. Whether or not you want to admit it or not, it's a psychological addiction. I want things to be like they always were. It's not going to happen. Like, it's not going to happen. So you might as well work through it and figure out why it is that you want things to always stay the way that they were. Like, why do you want that? Like, what does it do for you? Like, how? Like, how does it, how does it get things going for you? Like, why does it work for you? I mean, I know I always have to do it to myself. I have to remind myself I'm an imperfect being. Even though I may seek perfection, perfection will be a continual path to try to achieve. The only thing I can do in the interim is work on myself and try my best to keep growing forward, keep being loving, keep being truthful. Honesty and truth, those are the hardest things for people to really do. Like, to speak truthfully from their heart and to be open and honest about how they feel about things. You can tell, usually within the first 10 to 15 seconds of an interaction with somebody, whether or not they're being open, authentic, and truthful. Like, you really can't, I mean, the hypersensitivity of it is not difficult to sense. Like, children are really good at sensing it. Children are great at everything. They just know. They're still so, because of the innocence, nothing's tainted their view perspective. They can just innately go, oh, well, this is because of this. And it's like, yeah, because they're thinking emotionally. They're feeling emotion. They're feeling everything. They're not having this thing mess it all up. Like, I know that my just being love studying and loving to read and everything and loving to just study new topics, as much as it's been a benefit, it's also been such a huge hindrance, because when you have so many different perspectives in your head and you go back from a system to another system to another system to another system, and it's all psychological, intellectual shit. It's not emotional in any way, shape, or form. It's not instinctual. It's just intellect. That's it. All you're doing is pulling one book from one and looking through it and be like, oh, well, here's one answer. All right, cool, write that shit down. And then you put that book away, and then you go and pull from another one. And it's like, oh, hey, here's that one, write that shit down. But sometimes you can just bypass all that intellectual crap and just tap in right into the instinct, right into the emotion, know exactly what the answer is, and you don't need to affirm it in any way, shape, or form. You can affirm it, but what's funny is that whenever you intellectually affirm it, what comes to pass most of the time is that you realize that intellectual affirming of what you instinctually and emotionally knew to be true from the beginning, you then go, oh shit, I already knew that. Huh. It's funny, I didn't need the intellectual, affirming of it, but it came to pass, and sure enough, here it is. So today, I say, lay out your family lineage in front of you of all that you remember. Try to pinpoint certain things that happened historically in your past with your family, and how it came to be, if it were, like what they used to do, and see if you used to do it. And if you did, break it down and ask yourself why that happened, you know, and who and what and when and where and why and how, and then see how familiar you are to it and how you connect with it. So until next time, peace out and have fun. God bless.